All right. Hey, everybody. Nice to see you again. And I'm so excited to have everybody back today to be talking about Harambe Day, and the Harambe Day protests. Now, today's show is focused on the fact that we're doing a protest. Sorry, this is driving me a little crazy. Okay. There we go. This is one of our posters. We're getting ready to go back. As you can see, there's a kitty here. It's supposed to be keeping the poster in place, but she's busy. Anyway, today we want to talk about protests, the history of them. Do they work? Because on May 28th, we are encouraging everybody to protest in front of their local zoo to create an anti-captivity message that will resonate nationwide and worldwide. Today, what we're going to do is something really fun. I have added a link down there, and that is a link to come and join the show. So we want everybody to come on in, join us, and talk to us. We'll be bringing on guests in about 10, 15 minutes to talk about their experiences with protests and to see how that may be able to shed some light on what we're doing. So as soon as we announced Harambe Day, we got a lot of people saying, oh, protests, that'll never work. It's not, what good is that going to do to have people standing outside the zoo yelling at people coming into the zoo? It's an interesting question, and it's an interesting perspective. So today, let's talk a little bit about protests. What I really was amazed by is the history of protests. So actually, the very first one ever recorded was 500 BC. And that was a protest against the Athenian government. So it's amazing to think that people back then understood that if they unified and had one message, that was the only way they would be heard. Why do we protest? Why are there protests? Why is it important that we have the freedom of speech to protest? One of the main reasons is exactly that, the freedom of speech. A lot of times laws do not protect communities, citizens, public interest, but they do protect corporations. And the only way we can demand change is if we show that a lot of us want to see that change. And that is where the protests come in. So I went through and found a couple old protests that I thought were really interesting and important to highlight. Now, this one here is for women's suffrage, one of extremely important protests that led to change in the government. This is one of the first animal rights protests against experimentation. I believe it was 1980. Now we have another protest. So I looked up the top 10 most important protests in history, and it did remind me there's quite a few of these. There's the Selma to Montgomery March. There is Gandhi's Salt March, which was against the heavy salt taxation of the British government. And it was one of the first steps towards his revolution, his peaceful revolution. There was the Take Back the Night, which was about domestic violence towards women. So all of these things have brought about change that we see in our modern day today. There's, of course, the famous March on Washington. Everybody would know this image from their history books, Tiananmen Square. Now, did Tiananmen Square change anything? It's a tough question to ask, but it made a difference, and it set a stage to make a difference. Now, a couple others that I thought were pretty interesting. In 2015, there was a huge protest, which led to the establishing of the Magna Carta. In 1649, a huge protest led to the English Civil War. In 1773, everybody in America should remember, we had a huge protest, the Boston Tea Party. That kicked off quite a few events. 1789, we got to remember there was a protest for the French Revolution. Now, all of these led to changes in government. 1863, there was the Emancipation Proclamation, which was brought in after another protest. And there was actually several protests which led up to the changes that were created there. Now, today, protests tend to be either extremely political or extremely environmental. And for me, what I started realizing is sometimes they are one in the same. And here's a big protest that is, I believe, I can't remember where this was. This is Greta Thunberg protest that they have a an international protest to try to stop and fight for climate justice. The kids of today want a better future for tomorrow. Now, of course, no Planet B. We're all very familiar with these signs. And of course, there's amazing protests going on at zoos all the time. There's Retire Lucy from a friends of ours that are trying to get Lucy, an elephant who's being held in Canada. You heard me right, Canada, in negative weather outside. This poor elephant has been alone, extremely cruel life. So these protests are going on all the time. We have friends in Florida that are continuously protesting what's happening with the clean water there. And it's really important, and it's making a difference. And sometimes we can't always convince the companies to make a change, but we can convince other people to continue to speak up and empower everybody to speak up. Hey, Stacey, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today. And who do we have here? John Heim. Hey, John, thanks for joining us. Thank you for those kinds of words. There's of course, I know, I actually, when I very first started learning about clean water issues in Florida, John, it was due to your live streams, which were a form of protest because you were bringing your camera where places weren't allowed, where cameras weren't allowed to be, and where people were not going, to show everybody what was happening. And that's the thing, is once you bring a camera somewhere, you're showing them what it is, and then you allow people to have their own education. And what is, Rick O'Berry said after watching Harambe, one of the comments he made to us was that an educated consumer, that's everything. That's what can change the future. So how do we educate people? Well, we have a couple different ways. Of course, there's documentaries, there are journalist articles, but nowadays people don't really trust journalism. They don't trust who the article is coming from. It's a very interesting time where our country sort of split into two sets of facts. But there is only one set of facts when it comes to animal exploitation, and that is that it's cruel, unnecessary, and must stop. And this is what we are focused on, is to stop these breeding programs inside of zoos where, okay, let's say you have an endangered animal here, like a silverback gorilla. What good is it to breed them in zoos and keep them in zoos while they dwindle in nature? That is a lot of misplaced energy that's not saving the species. I don't quite get that. Let's see. John does say, activists are needed on the grand scale of all advocacy work via different styles of groups and organized nonprofits. Without their street activism, there would be no attention to the case of the fight for clean water. Absolutely, John. I agree 100%. It is so important. Excuse me. I believe that a lot of times we are told that our voice doesn't mean anything. When you protest something that's unpopular, people say, don't worry about that. It'll never change. Don't worry about that. Don't do anything about that. People are very dismissive in a lot of ways of when we want to do this. And I think one thing that people start to feel is powerless. One of the biggest problems for all of us, right, that are activists, not even activists, just people that want to see the future better. One of our most frustrating elements is that we feel we're powerless. But you know what? You're not powerless at all. And even though one person can bring down an entire corporation with the truth, just the acts of truth, we need more than that. We need more than that one person. We need a lot of people. Companies do not speak emotion. It's not their job. We've always said this. Companies don't understand emotion. They don't understand right or wrong. What they understand is profit, and they understand the bottom line. And we cannot be upset with them for that. That is their intention. They're not designed to be acts of goodwill or danger acts or acts of harm. They're intended to be money-making entities. CEOs have a responsibility to their stockholders to make profits for their companies. And that's where their head is. Now, how does this come into protesting? Once we start to protest and we make our voices known, it's going to affect ticket sales. We saw it with SeaWorld. We almost brought SeaWorld absolutely to their knees. This is where we can really make a difference and make sure that our voice gets heard. Because when our voice gets heard, it'll affect their economy. And once it affects their economy, that's the language companies understand. The Cincinnati Zoo is not going to stop breeding gorillas because it's morally wrong and ethically irresponsible, they're going to stop breeding them if there's no more profit to be made by breeding them. We're seeing that right now in many zoos across America. We're seeing zoos closing due to the economics of our time. You know, rates are going up, costs are going up, everything's going up, and attendance is going down. So the gap between where zoos' profitability works is widening and widening and widening, and we just got to keep going in there and widening it further and further until they become places that help animals instead of destroying the world in the future. Who else do we have here? Hey, Maxwell, thank you for joining. Another amazing water activist. It's good to see you on here, Maxwell. Thank you. Always fighting for a better future. I'd like to celebrate Harambe Day in a positive manner. Thank you. You know, that was one thing we really wanted to make sure we did. You know, so, okay, by the way, Harambe's birthday, for everybody that's not familiar with Harambe's birthday is May 27th. Many years later, one day after his birthday, he was killed. So we're going to be celebrating May 27th. We're having a birthday party for Harambe. We're going to have an online birthday celebration. We have a couple guest people that'll be showing up, and we're going to be celebrating with Jeff McCurry for that holiday. Then on the 28th, we would like to use our voice to be Harambe. We would like to unify. And everybody remember, Harambe in its Swahili native language means to unify, come together, pull together for the better of the community. And we need to pull together for the betterment of our own community, but also the community of our closest living relatives. Okay, everybody, so check it out. At the very top here, there you're going to see a StreamYard link. If you click on that StreamYard link, you will pop up in our video here. Come on and join me. Let me know what you're thinking. I want to know if you think protests can work. Is this a good strategy? You know, we're going to be starting Harambe Day we're hoping it'll be every year until gorillas are no longer bred in zoos. Do you think we should continue this strategy? We want to find the best strategy, and we want to hear everyone's opinions because everybody out there has something to offer. We all have to look at this problem from a different perspective, and all of us bring an experience and a view and a vision of how we can make this day work and make things positive for the future. Stacy says, in addition to boots on the ground at these protests, social media certainly has a role to play. It's almost like the gift that keeps giving the day after day. Stacy, I absolutely agree. You know, it's very interesting because Sierra and I were actually just talking about the fact that it is somewhat of a challenge to connect social media and environmentalism, and especially the kind of work that we do. So we're continually trying to reach more and more audiences through our social media and grow our social media and keep everybody connected, because even though, again, it comes back to everybody feeling fragmented, and Harambe should be the word that reminds everybody we're not fragmented, we're united. We all want the same thing, even if we see it from a different perspective. Great example is zoos. Some people love the zoo. Some people despise the zoo. Both of those people love animals. So what we need to do is stop thinking about the separation and start thinking about the unification. Don't look at what separates us. Let's look at what combines us and connects us and unifies us. What makes us, in the Swahili term, Harambe. If we can enact Harambe's name, spirit, and vision of that unity, we can affect change all around the world. And we firmly believe that. And we've seen it happen. Just again, go back to the history of protests. John Haim used to do a lot of different protests. There's been so many protests in Florida that we've seen that have come about with real results. And this is what's important, are the results. The more protests there are, the more people get together, the more people go, hey, wait, you think the way that I do, and I think the way that you do. Yeah, there's something in this. Let's stay on this path. Sometimes as activists, we just need the encouragement to not give up and to not feel overwhelmed. Every problem has a handle we can pick it up and move it with. The problem is finding that handle, and only through unity of people can I think we really find that that. And that is a huge solution. John says, I protested for 30, 60, 90 days straight in a row to demand signs from our local government to erect with QR codes on them to give the public up-to-date, accurate information instantly about water quality at each beach access sign. And after 10 years of fighting, it got done because we made it a ballot item in response to the 6-month-long protest. Fantastic. That's exactly what I'm talking about right there. The change that can be affected by showing people that don't know how to listen to emotion, moral, or ethics, but have to focus on their business. When they find out that people aren't going to support them any longer, they will make a change, just like John was able to affect change in that area. So they may not work ASAP. That is so true. Things always take a lot longer than you want them to. Yet they do work if you stay as a true activist, which means more than protesting, to get to act of protest to the next levels. So, John, very, very, I agree 100%. There is a lot of aspects. And, one of the most important things, and this is where I think protests really create the most. It's not, we see the images of everybody holding signs, right? But in the end, it's all those people talking to each other at the protest. When they show up at a protest, they already know they have 10 things in common. So they have instant friends. And suddenly this community of people that want change grows and grows and grows until it cannot be changed over at all. Pete Seeger, somebody interviewed Pete Seeger, who's one of my favorite musicians a long time ago. Also, Pete Seeger used to do the Clearwater Music Festival as a way to, and he worked for Lake O a lot, actually in Florida. And he was a big advocate of trying to get clean water. But they asked Pete Seeger, you write all these protest songs. Do you really think it has an impact? And he said something that I always keep in my mind. He said, if you have a scale and it's like this, and you have a pile of sand right here, if you take one piece of the sand and you move it there, nothing's going to happen. You take another one and you move it there. I think you probably guys see where this is going. You take another and move it there. Eventually, it's going to go like this. Eventually, it's going to go like this. So remember, we're each a piece of sand that needs to be brought in to a common consciousness of unity, a Harambe, if we will. And that, again, is what Harambe Day is all about. So let's see. Stacy says, John, very true. I protested Ringling Brothers Circus at Madison Square Garden back in the 80s. It took a very long time to get it done, but they no longer use elephants in their shows. And Stacey, that is wonderful. That is amazing. And that was an amazing protest that really has had an impact. Circuses are no longer using animals. And as a matter of fact, in England, zoos are getting rid of elephants because they are declared sentient. Now, the ironic thing is the Cincinnati Zoo, who unfortunately was responsible for killing Harambe due to them having an inadequate barrier and, to me, an inadequate plan on how to handle the situation, along with inadequate training of the animals to understand the situation. All that aside, Cincinnati Zoo is bringing a lot of these elephants that are being removed from other zoos in England and other places to the Cincinnati Zoo. So again, the Cincinnati Zoo, they know elephants are sentient. They know it's wrong to bring them in, and they're going to continue to do it for money. They can't listen to morals, ethics, standards, or even protests. They have to listen to money. People want elephants. As long as people go to the zoos, it's going to happen. So we're going to have a big protest in front of the zoo to help people understand things like zoochosis, the damage that they are doing to these animals, and that we can actually just stop this. We don't have to live in a cruel world. We just don't. And we don't need to live allowing cruelty for the concept of education. In the movie, we talk about the fact that just doesn't work at all. Now, how can you protest this Harambe Day? You can come join us in Cincinnati. We will be 9 a.m. in front of the zoo. I know the zoo's watching. I'm sure they'll be there very unhappy. But it's a peaceful protest. We are not a violent protest. We are not wear an opera singer's hat and storm the building protest. We are a peaceful protest. We are a protest of love because we're trying to attain love. And the only way we can do that is through the act of love and kindness and conversation. So we're there to try to offer people a new piece of information they might not have had before. And again, to become an educated consumer. And how can we do that? We can talk about zoochosis and other things. What are other ways? You can go to your local zoo, put up a sign. You can hold up a piece of paper with the hashtag Harambe Day so that it is all over the internet. Everybody's thinking about Harambe, what happened to Harambe, and making sure it doesn't happen again. And one thing that we are working right now with a couple groups to start is a campaign, a national campaign, to try to stop schools from taking children to zoos. This is one of the most misguided pieces of education, aside from allowing companies like Mosaic and other mining companies to come in to educate students. But this other piece is absolutely insane. And to expose children to this form of cruelty when they don't fully understand how to process an animal in a cage that looks depressed, I think it does damage both to the animals and to the children that go there. So we are asking everybody to start protesting this all that way. So here we go. Jeff Kremer says, apathy is the only way we lose the battle to be a voice for our sentient animal friends that cannot speak for themselves. Challenge accepted. Thank you, Jeff. I think that is absolutely beautifully said. And that is true. And that is another thing that they try to make sure we have is apathy. But the thing about animal people, activists, water people, all of us, we all have been touched in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, our thoughts. We've been moved to make this move forward. We are people that want to see change, and we won't stop until we see it. And that is true. And just what Jeff said, when people shut off their hearts or their minds or their souls to the problems around them and create apathy as a coping mechanism, the world loses and they lose as well. The world needs more love. It needs more kindness. And what is the only thing we learn from every animal we meet, basically, is love, kindness, unconditional love, kindness, and I would say mindfulness, how to be in the moment, all lessons we can learn, all things we should think about heading to the future. So the big question, do protests work? I want to hear more of your thoughts. Some people say yes, some people say no. We do see in the history of the world, protests make a big difference and create social change of massive impact. And there needs to be more and more and more, I believe. And I think John says it really well when he says environmental activism is the rent I pay to live on this planet. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the other thing is activists will always find a way, right? It's like in Jurassic Park, they say life finds a way. In reality, activists find a way. We're always struggling. We're always pushing forward. It's never an easy life because we always have to give up something to do our activism. So it has to really take an important place in our life. And that is the passion that drives it. And passion will always overtake profit in the end. So I definitely see that. Hey, there's Coralie. Hey, Coralie. Nice to see you. Keep doing what you're doing. Exactly. All of us need to keep doing it. I've known Coralie now for years and years and years. She's always been an incredible activist, staying out there, pushing for the future. And that's what's amazing about this. I see Coralie, I see John, I see Jeff Kremer. I see a lot of my friends here, Maxwell Allen, Stacy. There's a few other folks that are on here today. And these are names of people that I've known for a while. And that's the thing is the activists don't come and go. They can't. So one of our natural ways to express ourselves is protesting. Personally, I have heard both sides of the argument. I think it's important to make your voice heard, however you want to do that. And to me, protesting is always a way to express displeasure in an environment where sometimes you don't always have the First Amendment rights you feel you should to go against what's happening. So let's keep our rights. Let's keep our voices active. Let's stay out there. Let's keep protesting. Let's keep fighting for a better future. And again, let's keep conversations going. Let's get a nice debate. There's never a right or wrong in a conversation. There's just two perspectives that can sharpen each other's understanding of each other, which grows then the possibility of finding a solution. And that's all we need to do, is find a solution, because we need it and the earth needs it. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. I love these conversations. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you, John, Stacy. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Sierra. Thank you, everybody I know. Coralie. Thank you to all the activists, Maxwell, everybody that I have the pleasure of getting to talk to on a daily basis, a weekly basis, sometimes a monthly basis. But all of you that are out there, thank you. To my partner right here. She's doing wonderful. You were doing a great job. She's been the poster holder today. So anyway, everybody have a great day today. I will see you all tomorrow. We're going to continue on doing our lives. We want to do them every day because we want to talk about approaches to change. And we'll see you all tomorrow. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. Please keep it going in the comments. Tell us more about your thoughts. Protests, yes or no? All right. Thanks, everybody.